Yu-Gi-Oh. You ever heard of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh. Kids love that, man. You don't know Yu-Gi-Oh. You gotta get out more, Jack. Yu-Gi-Oh hot.
I'll just kind of lay down a couple rules, or I guess I don't know. We're just gonna be looking at these cards not in a vacuum because like in a vacuum 90% of these cards are good, but like in the current meta game right now.
Current metagame, got it.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with the first one. Triple Tactics Thrust. If
That's
your
my
opponent
signature
has activated If your opponent has activated a monster effect during this turn, set one normal spell or trap directly from your deck except for Triple Tactics Thrust. Or if your opponent controls a monster, you can add it to your hand instead. That set card cannot be activated this turn, and then you can only activate it once per turn.
So, okay. Your opponent activated a monster effect during this turn. That one
Yes.
normal spell trap card directly from your deck. That means just like activate a, or no, that means put a trap card into play or activate a spell.
Okay, so
As long as it's not Triple Tactics Thrust.
how Yu-Gi-Oh works with spell and trap cards is you can do one or two things with spell cards. You can activate them just like right off the gate, or you can set them to be activated on a later turn or just like later in the turn.
Okay.
But for
Oh.
trap cards, you have to set them and you have to wait one turn before activating them. So you would have to set a trap card, end your turn, and then on your opponent's turn, you could activate that trap card.
You David Fred.
Also, this specifies a normal spell or trap card. So that means spell cards like quick play spells are off the board.
Okay.
It has to be just like a regular vanilla spell card.
Okay, and if your opponent controls a monster, you can add it to your hand instead. So basically, you can just yoink a monster.
You can just, like search out a spell trap card directly from that.
I think this is either... So, yoinking a monster seems pretty good.
No, like, so it's not stealing a monster. The clause is if your opponent controls a monster, you can add that normal spell or trap to your hand instead of setting it.
Oh, okay.
So you search your deck for a spell or trap.
So, okay. This just sounds like the easiest tutor to possibly use. But now I have to think if that matters. Like, I know in Hearthstone, like, you could run a tutor, but, like, you may just want to run good cards instead. I think this just has to be good, at least in, like... I imagine combo decks just want to run this. So I'm going to say this is good.
Alright, so final answer, this is a good card.
This is a good card.
This is probably one of the best cards ever printed in the game.
Let's go!
So the reason why this is good is because let's say your opponent like interrupts your turn with a hand trap or something, which is a monster card that you discard from your hand to, like, you know, sometimes it can just until the end of the turn banish all cards instead of getting sent to the graveyard. It could negate a search from your deck to your hand. So if your opponent like activates a hand trap, you could use this at the very least to set a trap card to get an interruption out of your opponent, just to kind of like save, I guess, your board state and not die the next turn. And there's a very popular card called Infinite Impermanence. It's a normal trap card that is a monster negate. So, like, at the very worst, it is an interruption, and at the best, it is searching your deck for any spell card that you would possibly need.
Yeah, like, I think any card that is that easy to use, that is just pick a card from your deck that you want, can't be bad, right?
Yeah, and like going second as well, um, your opponent will like 99% of the time have monsters already on the board just because of like, them building their board. So going second, this will either like almost always trade for a negate on their end, or if it's a deck that like doesn't really play negates, you can thrust for a board breaker of your own to like kind of get into the game again and not like lose on the spot.
I love the wording. You get a thrust for the card.
Yeah,
That's
what
good.
pretty much
That's
everyone
good.
says. We thrust for the card. It's pretty fun.
All
right.
Hearthstone doesn't get fun stuff like that. We get they get stupid keywords constantly that like are just their keywords are stupid. I understand the whole thing is like we're making a new set, so we're gonna have a keyword that's like exclusive to the set. Sometimes it's fun. Like the new one, they have a cowboy themed expansion, and the keyword is quick draw, which just means it does a bonus effect if you play it on the turn you drew it. It's kind of lame. Like the effect's lame, but quick draw is pretty fun.
Yu-Gi-Oh has a single keyword and is piercing. That's it.
Yeah, that's why the text is. That's why the text is in like Arial font size 2.
Well, without piercing, it would literally have to be when you declare an attack on a defense position monster, subtract their defense from your monster's attack, and inflict that difference to your opponent. It's dumb and clunky, so they just say piercing.
Magic the Gathering says trample. I like that one. Trample's good.
Alright, next one. Dimension Shifter. If you have no cards in your graveyard, quick effect, which means you can activate it on like either player's turn. You can send this card from your hand to your graveyard until the end of the next turn. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead.
Okay, so I have a feeling the attack and defense values of this card are worthless.
Yes.
And it is entirely an effect based.
Yeah.
Now, the fact if you have no cards in your graveyard sounds actually really difficult to do from my knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh.
This would be a card you are activating at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah. But any card sent to the graveyard is banished and could be really good, because I assume any card means your opponent's cards too.
Yes.
So this is like a trap card minion. You said it's a quick effect. So you go second, you slam this baby down, and then your opponent just banishes their just can't play their fucking turn, or their cards are getting banished instead. So if they have like graveyard synergy, which I don't know much about Yu-Gi-Oh, but I know when my brother talks about his decks, he's mentioned in summoning stuff from the graveyard, and it just comes up. The word comes up a lot. But the effect seems so okay. It seems so difficult. But it really seems like, in my mind, I think unless you're going second and this is your play on turn 1, it doesn't seem good. And what's the size of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck?
40 to 60 cards.
40 to 60. I know you can run 3s.
Yeah.
So best case scenario, a 1 in 20. Are you running a 1 in 20 chance to like maybe fuck? I'm gonna go with the Hearthstone. This is inconsistent. It is bad.
So bad final answer.
Bad final answer.
Okay. Well, this card is damn near bannable. It's that good. This card is so good, and it's so infuriating to play against. So yeah, you were on the right track when your brother was like talking about the graveyard a whole bunch, because the graveyard is so unbelievably huge in this game. Getting your cards banished is almost like the equivalent of, I guess, having them just shuffled straight up back into your deck. But
I thought
you can't
I thought
access them
banish
at
was
all
just
really.
like delete.
Yeah, so there's a separate pile for banished cards. And most decks have a very hard time interacting with that banished pile. Like, some decks just cannot interact with it at all. But others, getting their cards banished is their, like, entire gimmick.
Oh.
So there's a deck called Fluanderies. And it's a deck that, like, anytime one of their monsters leaves the field, it gets banished instead. So them being able to fulfill this, even on their own turn after making their own plays, is very easy, and it doesn't affect them, like, in any way, shape, or form.
I want to point out that I understand the idea of banish. When you have like all the graveyard synergy, you essentially need something that's like double dead. But then having cards that specifically interact with banished cards feels counterproductive to the entire point of banishing to begin with. So when are they gonna have to add like eradicated or something like beyond banish?
So they have two different types of banishing. Face up banishing and face down banishing. Face up banishing is what this card does. And it's like, if a card says it's banished, it's treated as face up banished. However, if it specifically says face down banished, then you have to place it face down, and there's like even less decks that can touch face down banished cards.
What, they
I
can
don't
still
think there's
interact with?
No, there's like maybe 5 cards in the entire game that interact with face down banished cards. It is like very hard to pull any of your cards.
That's what I did
Impossible,
not.
even.
I did not take into account that banishing could be a good thing for me.
Yeah. Okay, next card. I think I know what this next one is. Okay, it's this guy. Alright. So this one's a bit of a mouthful. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Neither player can target this card with effects. During your main phase, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. You can use this effect a number of times per turn, equal to the number of normal monsters used as fusion material for this card. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can discard one card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack.
Okay. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Just sounds like it's good to begin with. That's my baseline.
Okay.
During your main phase, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. Equal to the number of normal monsters used as fusion material for those cards. So basically,
I don't know if you can see, but on the card, it says like Dark Magician plus Red Eyes Black Dragon or one Dragon Effect monster.
yeah, I see that.
Those are the materials required for its summon. So you need to use, at the very minimum, Dark Magician plus Red Eyes Black Dragon, or instead of Red Eyes Black Dragon, you can use one Dragon Effect monster.
Okay. This seems pretty conditional, but it also seems like this would be
Okay.
So this is a win condition, which means you build your deck around it. Especially with the niche effect. This isn't like something you can just. This isn't like Reno Jackson. You can just slot into whatever deck you're running, even if you have dupes. This isn't. Okay, so I have to think comparison. I think I'm essentially at the part where I don't know if the effect really matters. Like, it's a complicated effect, but I think this just comes down to you play this and you win, or you don't play it and you lose. Okay, wait, no. Okay, I can. How much HP do you get in Yu-Gi-Oh?
8,000.
8,000. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to the monster's original attack. And I assume you can't attack with cards that turn their summon?
No, you actually can.
Oh, you can?
Except on the first turn. Because then your opponent just won't be able to play the game.
Okay,
Like,
so...
the player that goes first, they can't attack on their turn.
Okay, so
But
this
the
would
player
be
that
a
goes
win
second
condition.
can.
Just kill your... So... Once per turn when this card effect is activated, quick effect, you can discard one card and negate the act. So, essentially, if you have 5 cards left over in your hand, you can just kill the other person. And
it has a once per turn on it.
oh, it has a once per turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's bump that to 4,000 attack. So in theory, this is 4,000 attack.
Yeah, pretty
You
much.
can destroy 2 monsters?
Yeah, if you use Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon.
Yeah, can you use more?
No, you can only use 2
Like the 2.
monsters. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say this is bad then. I think even though you can like clear the board and and slap this thing down, I think if it's not winning you the game when you play it, even though it says cannot be destroyed by card effects, I feel like if it's not winning you the game when you play it, you're gonna lose the next turn. Like, that's what I know from Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it's just combo is crazy. So I think something that requires setup, unless there's a way, unless there's cards that can bump this thing up to like 8,000 attack easily, but neither player can target this card with card effects. I'm going bad.
Yeah, so you're correct. On paper, this card reads as like the best thing ever to most, I guess, new players. But it is not. It's not very good. Kind of starting off, the fact that it's a fusion monster already kind of makes it weaker, just because of the fact that you need like those 2 cards and a fusion spell to summon him out.
Oh, you need
And there
a
are
fusion
ways
spell.
there were ways, I should say, to kind of cheat out fusion materials just to send them directly from the deck to the graveyard. However, most of them are extremely restrictive, or they're just banned because they were too good. There was a card called Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which could send a fusion spell from your deck to the graveyard to copy its effect. And the card that was like most copied when this card was played was Red Eyes Fusion, which allowed you to summon a Red Eyes monster from your extra deck using monsters from your deck as material, with the stipulation that you couldn't summon for the rest of the turn. So most people would just turbo out Verte and then turbo out this guy to just kind of get him on the board, because, like, you know, a couple years ago he was kind of a difficult card to deal with, and also having a negate on top of his protection made him a pretty decent choice. However, in the modern day, there are many ways to get around his targeting protection and his destruction protection. So nowadays, he's not good at all. I would even say he's bad.
The win condition that doesn't win you the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
In my mind, it was kind of like Temporis in Hearthstone was the closest comparison I could draw, which is still not even close. Temporis was like an 8-mana card. Battle Cry, your opponent takes 2 turns and then you take 2 turns.
Oh.
And it was just, if you can take your 2 turns, you just get a combo and win free. But your opponent's probably going to kill you in those 2 turns.
I could imagine.
Like, it's a win condition that doesn't win you the game when you play it.
Yeah. Alright. Next card.
2 for 3. Doing well.
Magic Cylinder, a classic. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, negate the attack, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack.
This is Hearthstone Eye for an Eye. Paladin secret. When your hero takes damage, do that much damage to the enemy. It doesn't negate the damage, but it just essentially they take the damage too.
Yeah.
It's great when you're playing a Paladin deck and the enemy's at like 1 HP left because they barely survived your onslaught, and then you play Eye for an Eye, and they know you played Eye for an Eye, and there's nothing they can do. They're like, I just have to stall this game out until like fatigue sets in, and I still lose. So, Eye for an Eye in Hearthstone was pretty good. It was easily played around, but it wasn't that big a... It wasn't bad. This is Eye for an Eye that then, like, negates the damage, which is good. But this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Are you actually, like, attacking someone in the face? I don't know. Everything I know about Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't, like, you just die from the hand. You don't... I'm gonna say, it's tricky. I want to say this card may have been good when it like first came out, but in the current meta, bad.
Yeah, pretty much spot on there. This card used to be very good, and I think it even used to be limited. However, nowadays, before you're attacking, you are most likely 9 times out of 10 clearing your opponent's entire field before going in for direct attacks. So, yeah, it used to be good, not so much anymore.
Oh, hell yeah.
Ooh, okay. Kind of hear you on this one. Signet Mining. Send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, add 1 level 4 or lower Cyberus monster from your deck to your hand, and then you can only activate it once per turn.
Okay. We're back into tutoring. Send 1 card to your hand from the graveyard. Sounds like fine, whatever. I don't think that's much of a downside. Add 1 level 4 or lower Cyberus monster from your deck to your hand. It's a tutor, and I guess if you want a level 4 or lower Cyberus monster, good. And if you're running, but okay, it's 4 or lower. I assume levels like on the previous monsters you've shown, they had like little stars.
Yeah.
I assume that's a level.
Yeah, so level 4 is the highest level you can summon without having to tribute monsters. So you can just like straight up summon a level 4, a level 3, a level 2, or a level 1. But the second you get into like level 5, 6, 7, 8, you have to start tributing for them. Levels 5 and 6 requiring 1 tribute, and then levels 7 and 8 and beyond requiring 2.
This is also bad. This is also in a bad position because now we've hit the this is number 5. Meaning I can't at least mind game it where like there's been 2 good, 2 bad so far. Which I'm trying not to do that. But it's hard not to think like that. It's tutor. The combo. Everything about it. It has to be good, right? Final answer, good.
Yeah, correct. So sending a card from your hand to the graveyard, for Cyberus decks at the very least, is not a downside like in the slightest, because they really like strive to get their graveyard set up to like, you know, reborn their monsters, bring them back, use it to go for your extra deck summons, bring those monsters back to keep like climbing into higher and higher, better and better monsters. So sending a card from your hand to the graveyard is probably seen as a good thing. And then you get the level 4 or lower Cyrus monster from your deck to your hand, which you can use to kind of start your combos. There's a deck called Salamangreat that has they won one of their cards in the graveyard because it can just special summon itself back out from the graveyard. And so you can use Signet Mining to put it in the graveyard, search their combo starter, and then use the card you just sent as like an extender.
I come from Hearthstone, so I know mana, which I am very much have it ingrained that mana doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! So when I'm like, tutor a card, I'm like, well, it depends on other and it's like, no, it's just, there's no cost to doing that.
You just go in Yu-Gi-Oh!
There's no cost. Like, oh, but like in Hearthstone cards, it's the mana cost. So it's like, well, it's a bit late in the game to tutor a 1-drop, and it's like, no, it doesn't matter. It's free. Or it's like, well, there's only 30 cards in your deck, so if you want to run this, you have to take out some of the other cards you actually want to run, and then it's not worth it anymore. And then it's also like, no. Like Hearthstone, you gotta like play there's always tempo, so it's like, yeah, you could run all the powerful 8 mana removal spells, but then the decks running 1 and 2 cost minions aren't gonna let you get to turn 8. So there's no so it's like the downside for running like greedy cards, like a Cyanide Mining thing that is just draw your combos, because you're not like doing anything early to live. But there's no reason to not.
Yeah, like in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can theoretically play your entire hand all at once, but that might not be like the best play you could make. You kind of need to know like how and when to sequence your cards, which is where like 99% of the skill in Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes from.
Yeah, it's
like
different resources is just like the cards is like cards and time.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, you've been doing pretty good so far.
Hell yeah.
Let's see if you can figure out if this card is good.
Oh, I'm already
Snake
baited.
Rain.
I don't want to live in a
Discard-
world where Snake Rain is bad.
Discard 1 card, send 4 reptile monsters from your deck to your graveyard.
Oh. Okay. Aside from the fact I love the art. I love it's called Snake Rain. I love the thematics of this card a lot. I discard 1 card. So okay. Send a card to the reptile. Does a reptile deck give a shit about monster? It has to, okay? Sending the cards to your graveyard is like the good part of this card. There's no way reptile decks don't have stuff that synergizes with the graveyard. If this card is just send 5 cards to the graveyard. I don't know what is going on right now. Yeah. I'm being quizzed on if Yu-Gi-Oh cards are good or not before I get into Yu-Gi-Oh video game 1. That is barely Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say Snake Rain is good because there is no way a card sends 4 reptile type monsters to the graveyard if reptile type monsters aren't like really good in the graveyard. Gotta be good. Final answer.
So unfortunately, this card is good for reptile decks. However, reptile decks are not good.
Ooh.
So by proxy, this card is not good.
True. I should have known that. My brother never mentions reptile decks. It's always like, I want to run like fairies and plants and weird mech stuff.
So yeah, the problem with reptile decks is that
They
they
can't
don't
run
really
Frog
have
the
a-
Jam.
they don't really have a payoff. So
Okay.
rep- reptile decks get like all of these cards that are just like straight gas. Like the second reptile decks get a good payoff for the deck, I think they will genuinely become a very big problem because they have such insane support but nothing to do with it.
Oh, I can tell exactly the Hearthstone stuff. It's two things. This is Galvadon the last. It was a quest paladin deck where you had the quests were basically like you play them on turn 1, and then when you meet the conditions of the quest, get a really powerful minion in your hand, and it was like buff 5 of your creatures or something like that, and your reward was Galvadon the Last Kaleidosaur. And it was dog shit. You would play it, and its ability was to adapt 5 times, and adapt was like the keyword from the set. And that basically meant it got 1 of 3 random buffs. But a lot of those times, those random buffs wouldn't be stat increases. So you could just get like, your win condition ends up being like a 4/4 that just summons like 6 1/1s when it dies. And it has stealth. And it's like, that's worthless. Give Quest Paladin a good win condition. Snake Rain.
Yeah.
And then this is Snake Rain is like, I can't remember the buff cards from, but there were some good buff cards. You just didn't have a win condition.
But yeah, it is a good card, but like reptiles don't have anything to do with it. All right, next one. This one was a little baity because I knew me talking about silent mining would throw you off a little. Ooh, Tearlament's Kid Close. If this card is special summoned,
can I say one thing before you read the effect?
Yeah.
This is an attractive anime lady. They purposefully made it good, just so that people would simp for the character. Lock in the. Okay, read the card.
If this card is special summoned, you can take 1 Tearlament's card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can target 1 monster you control, send the targeted monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by this effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then up once per turn on it.
Okay, it's special summon. What is special summon?
Okay, so in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's 2 types of summoning. There's normal summoning, which you get once per turn. So you can like normal summon a guy, and then you don't get any more normal summons for the rest of the turn, unless a card gives you another normal summon. But special summoning usually has a requirement that you must meet before that card can be special summoned, and you can do that as many times as you want in a turn.
So that's the Hero Elements monster plus 1 Aqua monster?
Yes.
Okay.
And most of the Tearlament's cards are Aqua monsters.
Okay. So, there's a lot of graveyard stuff.
Yes. I'll give you a little bit more information so you can make an informed take. The Tearlament's cards gain effects when they're sent to the graveyard, and most of them fusion summon a monster by shuffling themselves back into the deck with the material. So, like, a play you can make is sending 2 Tearlament cards to the graveyard with a card effect, and then you could activate one of their effects to shuffle both those cards back into the deck to summon Kid Cullis.
Okay, I think my read is that this card is essentially beyond my comprehension. in the sense of it is just send a bunch of cards to your graveyard, and I think this is ending up kind of in a similar spot as Snake Rain, in the sense of, I guess it depends on how good the deck is and like a bunch of other stuff within the deck, but I am going to say this card is absolutely busted, almost on the ban list, because it is an anime girl they want people to buy shit for.
Yeah, so you're completely on the money here. This card is banned.
Oh, let's go!
So, kind of starting off, we're going to break this down into the 3 effects. When it's summoned, you can just straight up add a Tier Limits card from your deck, or just send it to the graveyard to perform a fusion summon, or you could just add it to your hand to keep extending. And you can kind of synergize the search effect with its second effect by sending itself to the graveyard and then specialing that monster that you just searched out, which usually ends up in you sending 8 cards from your deck to the graveyard, which in most cases when you're playing Tier Limits just means you win the game, because you get so many fusion summons from your Tier Limits monsters, and you get so much graveyard setup with your non-engine that like activates in the graveyard. Your opponent usually, like 99% of the time, cannot win from that point. So this card is like a must negate when you play against Tier Limits. However, not anymore because it's banned. Tier Limits also ushered in one of the, I guess, few Tier 0 formats where this was the only playable deck. If you weren't playing Tier Limits, you lost. Like, that's it.
Okay, yeah, this is the OBA, League of Legends Riot Games thing, where they're like, we're just gonna release the pretty anime lady, but we're gonna make her overpowered when she comes out, so that everyone associates her with being cool and good, and then people will love the character. No, we just made a knockoff of a different character instead of writing our own. It's okay.
This was also like one of the most skill testing decks ever. Like, if people just knew more about the deck and were more skilled with it than you lost. Like, this was just a pure skill deck. Like, you needed to know how to play this deck well and efficiently to win. And if you knew how to do that, you were unstoppable.
Hold on, I do have to address something real quick. I wish Dota would do something like that. What are you talking about? Hold on. You mean you wish Dota would release you wish Dota would release a cute anime lady who's overpowered so that people would love the character? Well, do I have great news for you. They did it like 2 years ago. Remember her? Remember Marcy? Do you remember Marcy? She was in the anime just for this. No, I mean, we do love Marcy, so that's like okay. Marcy? Marcy sucks. No, Marcy's just only good if you're good and your team's good. Marcy's just Tusk too. She was like really good at first. In fact, she was so good at being a carry that people found out she was actually better as a support than being a carry, because you could accomplish the same things you could as a carry without buying the same items as the carry. So you could essentially just do the same damage, but just be poor and still be effective. So you just became a support instead. My favorite OP anime lady from is Centaur. That's old days. Okay? Old days. Okay, done with the Dota talk.
But,
it's okay, Muerto was the cute anime lady who wasn't OP.
Yeah, I guess that's it for this one. On to the next one. Evenly matched. At the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can make your opponent banish cards from their field face down so they control the same number of cards as you do. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand.
Okay. Thinking, but I'm also doing like a. This is evenly matched. Gonna like. There we go. Thanos card now. At the end of the battle phase, your opponent controls more cards than you. Make your opponent banish cards from their field. Control no card. So this is like kill the board. If you okay, I'm gonna go. I think I have a very quick read on it, and it is the fact this is a trap card means it's slower.
Well, if you control no cards, you can activate it from your hand. You can just play it straight off.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go with this card is red because things don't stay on the field. I mean, okay, no. Hold on. I can't just say every bit of removal is bad because removal exists. It's like there has to be good removal in order for the cards that actually require to stay on the field are bad. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I've been discarding stuff in my mind that's like, oh, if it removes monsters, it's bad. That's just my thought instantly. Because I'm like, oh, things just get removed anyway, so it like doesn't matter. But if everything that removes monsters can't be bad because everything removes monsters. So I gotta like take an actual look at this instead of just saying, it's bad. Because there has to be good ones. There has to be good ones in order for some to be bad. So if you control no cards, you can activate this from your hand. Would tell me this could be good in a control deck where you aren't playing cards to the field, which also means probably combo, but also the fact that you can just play this. I assume you could play this like could you play this at the start of your turn and then summon minions?
So how the phases in Yu-Gi-Oh work is there's the draw phase where you draw one card from your deck, the standby phase, which is kind of like upkeep. Then there's the main phase 1, the battle phase, and then main phase 2.
Okay, that's one thing I hate about you, and the reason I'm a Hearthstone gamer is that it's just your turn and my turn are the only two phases. And when it's your turn, I alt tab to do something to like watch YouTube, and then I tab back in and be like, all right, what am I doing now? Okay. Bad card. That's my answer. Bad card. Bad card.
Unfortunately, wrong. This is like the best going second card ever printed.
Ooh.
So,
okay.
You do know that Yu-Gi-Oh's like in 99, or I guess everywhere except for Master Duel, it's a best of 3 format. So you play your first game, and then after the first game, you go into something called a side deck, and you can swap out cards from your main deck and your extra deck if you want from your side deck. So like if you know you're going to go second and your opponent's gonna go first, you would load your deck up with a whole bunch of going second cards, like evenly matched.
Okay. That makes more sense.
You would just go straight to the battle phase instead of doing anything in your main phase. you would throw this card down. Your opponent like has to banish their entire field, and then you just play the game normally.
I forgot we had the conversation earlier about banishing cards face down, and to me that I just glossed over that fact. You like triple kill it.
Yeah.
Sending to graveyard is normal kill, and banish is double death, and then triple death is banish face down.
Pretty much. If this card resolves 9 times out of 10, you win the game. But yeah, on to the next one. Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. You can ritual summon this card with Chaos Form. Must be ritual summoned and cannot be special summoned other ways. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict double piercing battle damage to your opponent.
Alright, we established trample. Not be targeted or destroyed by. So, I don't know what Chaos Form means. Chaos Form.
So how ritual monsters work is you need their specific ritual card to special summon them out. So Chaos Form, you would just activate it. You would fulfill its condition, which is sending a monster or monsters from your hand to the graveyard, whose total levels equal 8, which would be the level Chaos Maxes, and then you can special Chaos Max from your hand.
Okay, and as long as this isn't on the first turn, it can attack directly, so that's a lot of damage. Card attacks the defense. So, it's a lot of damage.
Yeah, 4,000 is a big number.
4,000 and then doubling it to 8,000. Full HP. So,
Well,
it's not gonna like one shot, but depending on what it's attacking,
yeah, it's gonna
it can
punch
go
your opponent
pretty
really
damn
hard.
close. So in theory, this is like 1 or 2 Hunter hero powers from the game. Without mana, you can like just there's probably something that does like not a hard way to get like an extra 1,000, 2,000 damage. I'm gonna start double guessing myself because it's Blue Eyes, so that means one of 2 things. Either you think I'm gonna say is good because it's a stronger Blue Eyes, so then it's actually bad, or you think that I'm gonna do the mind game. But then the question is, what does Konami think? Is Konami saying people love Blue Eyes White Dragon? Let's just print a busted as fuck Blue Eyes card? Or are they like, people love Blue Eyes, so let's just print a new one? Who gives a fuck what it does? It can go either way. This is absolutely a win condition.
Is it a good win condition though?
That's the question. I am going to okay. I'm gonna go with the wild call. I think this is good because you can get 2 of them. This is my prediction. I feel like you can get 2 of them at once. I feel like there's some way you get 2 of them at once, and then it's just like nothing you can do to stop it. You just win. Final prediction, good.
So this card is miserably bad. This card is awful, and it doesn't really stem from the card itself. It kind of stems from the card typing. It's a ritual card, which means you need a ritual you need 1, a ritual spell, 2, the ritual monster you're summoning, and 3, a monster or monsters that you're tributing to summon it. So it's a lot of resource investment for a card that just kind of punches hard and doesn't really do much else on the field. Or I guess it doesn't do much else on the field, or like have any other effects. Like, you know, Tearlament's Kid Claws. That's a great card because it has graveyard effects. It has on-field effects. It does a lot of things and it does them well. This guy only does like one thing, and having a battle effect in Yu-Gi-Oh isn't that great. I would be surprised if this guy lasted to the battle phase. Just because non-targeting, non-destruction effects are really commonplace in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So, you know, for kind of those reasons, Chaos Max isn't that good. And there are ways to kind of cheat out ritual monsters. The best one this saw use with was a card called Advanced Ritual Art, which in Blue Eyes decks was pretty decent because you could send a vanilla Blue Eyes from your deck to the graveyard to summon him, which kind of, you know, made it easier to get him out because you didn't need a card in hand to tribute for. So, and in Blue Eyes decks, they generally want their Blue Eyes monsters in the graveyard. So he kind of saw very niche play in Blue Eyes decks when those were playable, but that was 7 years ago, and Blue Eyes isn't a good deck anymore, so...
One thing I can tell you is this card would be busted in Artifact.
This guy would be pretty good in Artifact. Alright, I don't know how many more cards we have left, but I guess we'll find out. Okay.
No, that would be great. I can do a... Can a Yu-Gi-Oh player guess what cards were good in Artifact or not? And then all of the answers are, we don't know, the game died too early. We don't know, the game died too early.
The game died on day 1.
So the game lasted like 3 or 4 days, and then people stopped playing. And the whole... This is an unpopular opinion amongst all of the Artifact community, which I am still part of. People keep saying the only reason the game failed was because of the pricing system. In fact, you had to buy packs and you could like buy the individual cards on the market and stuff, but the game itself was $20. No, that had nothing to do with the fact the game died. The game died because it was bad. If it was the pricing system, if the game was good aside from the pricing system, the people that bought the game would have played it. But they stopped playing it instantly because the game was bad. It was like way too complicated in ways that didn't matter. And it was like winning didn't feel satisfying enough. And losing just felt like I don't know what the fuck happened. Baron de Fleur.
Yes, Baron de Fleur. Once per turn, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. Once while face up on the field, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. You can only use the previous effect of Baron de Fleur once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase, you can target one level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon that monster.
Is the extra deck the side deck, or are we talking extra deck?
So, there are 3 decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's your main deck, and then there's your extra deck. Your extra deck is kind of like your second hand that you can access at pretty much any point in time during the duel. And this is where your Synchro... Sorry about that. Synchro Monster... let me restart. The extra deck is where your Synchro monsters, your Fusion monsters, your Link monsters, your XYZ monsters kind of reside and sit for the entire game. Most of the time, your opponent can't interact with your extra deck, with the exception of like a couple cards. But for the most part, you will keep your extra deck to yourself and only kind of bring out monsters when I guess you want. In this case, Baron de Fleur, how Synchro monsters work is you need one tuner and a non-tuner for this card, and their levels need to add up to 10 in this case, because Baron's a level 10 monster. So you could do like a 6 and a 4, an 8 and a 2, a 5 and a 5, just as long as those monsters' levels add up to 10.
Now, my read already is this card does seem really powerful. This is counterspell, a multi-use counterspell on a stick. And then you can also summon level 9 or like really powerful shit from your graveyard. Question is how useful it all is. The one thing I was absolutely told to remember when judging cards, Yu-Gi-Oh games are like 3 turns long.
Yeah.
So a counterspell on a stick is that you can only do once per turn. Okay, best case scenario, you're getting like 3, which doesn't even seem that bad. But most likely, you're probably only getting 1. But that's not the thing I'm looking at here. I think the once per turn during the standby phase, you can target 1 level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, turn this card to the extra deck if you do special summon a monster. That's what seems really good. Essentially, okay, I got one important question then. If you use that effect on Baron de Fleur, and you return it to your extra deck and special summon your monster, can you then play Baron de Fleur again? And then do the effect a second time if you have played it twice in a single turn?
So a scenario where that would happen is like a turn 3 situation where Baron lives on your opponent's turn and you summoned it on your first turn. Which, yes, you could. Because how Baron works is once you negate a card effect, that negate is no longer live until Baron is resummoned again.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna go with. It's a steep cost, but I think the idea of summoning 1 level 9 or lower monster from your graveyard, and the fact this is in the extra deck as well, makes it seem like this is a relatively consistent way of getting a combo piece into play. And I think the counterspell aspect is probably useful, but more of like a secondary effect that you run with it, but it's not the main reason you run them. I'm gonna say this is good.
You got the right answer going the wrong way. So
It's the counterspell is good.
the counterspell is the best part about this card. This is an unbelievably strong card.
Oh wait, can I say what I was dumb about it? So counterspell is a spell or a secret in Hearthstone. That's what I'm thinking. But the thing is, you can choose which one to counter. It's not just like the first spell your opponent casts counter. You can just
you can choose which you're negating.
That's the thing with the Hearthstone one, is you just play around it by playing a shit spell first and then playing your good spell. But no, you can't play. Okay, I see how I oofed that one up.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking the right way.
Getting a negate plus just targeted destruction is also really good. The standby phase effect is really slow though, because the phases are your draw phase, your standby phase, and then your main phase. So you can't summon monsters during your standby phase unless it's like a quick effect to summon them. And you do need an open game state, which means like nothing is going on at that exact point for for you to summon out of your extra deck, essentially. So the standby phase effect is good, but it's kind of mediocre. The big thing about this is just having very easily accessible negation and also just destruction on field. That's like the best part about this card. There's a couple decks that excel at turboing this guy out. One of them being Sword Soul. Their like 1.5 card combo gets them this card plus a monster negate. And there are other decks, but Sword Soul's like the most popular one and like the one that is most well known for just kind of turboing this guy out along with another monster. But yeah, Baron is a very good card. I think there's one more, but I might be wrong here. No, okay, that's it. Yeah. You got Baron right, you got Chaos Max wrong, Evenly Matched wrong, Big Close right, Snake Rain wrong, Silent Mining right, Cylinder right. Okay, so you only got like 3 wrong.